I think people should get like hyped about SGA. It kind of broke my heart a little bit that we didn't. We're kind of understaffed now, but and that's kind of like why I'm stepping in. I'm no poli sci, I'm no expert, but anything to get involved, to get another person on board. I know people are working hard.
I've had enough about complaining about SGA, and when the tabling was great. Josiah did a great job because they had a sign that says "Hate SGA, make a difference." And I was like, you know what? If I don't run, and if somebody ends up on Senate that I don't like, I can't complain about that because I'm complicit.
Especially my last year here, like I want to kind of make this place my own, and I think I want to encourage all Grinnellians that like you can, there are so many opportunities, resources available to you that you can go and change things the way you want them to be, and I think Grinnell is a very adaptive place, and I think that if I can change one little thing, if like all I can do is like one little thing good, then it's like worth joining. So yeah.
I have found student affairs to be like an essential aspect of community development and just like happiness here. And so I also feel that student affairs can get a little overwhelmed and be hard to access. It's difficult sometimes to get what you want. And that's especially disheartening when you're trying to do something for the community and like make it better. And so I really want to represent students on that front and just like take what I've learned, use the relationships I've built, and be an advocate for people trying to create change in this community.
I felt last year that this community, in terms of, at the very least, racial treatment, was not the place where it should be. And I personally felt that firsthand. And my first year, I felt very disincentivized from talking about it openly because while I found pockets of support, ultimately I felt as though the overall community was not receptive to my fears, concerns, experiences, etc. But over the summer, I worked with local government advocates, and I feel like I found the strength to act on my voice.
So similarly to what Scott said, I'm part of the Athletic Belonging Collective, and that's an MLC, and so there's been a lot of issues this year with like budgets for MLCs, and so I thought being able to run is a great way to like represent MLCs as well as like my class and like be part of SGA, and like there's a lot of issues with SGA that people talk all the time, so it's nice to like be part of it and maybe possibly fix some of this.
Whenever I'm part of a club organization, I'm frustrated when people, the club leaders, organization leaders don't listen to what the students say or people in the club say. And so with that experience, when I ran for SJ, I had that in mind, and I wanted to make sure that the student body had a voice in every decision that we do on campus. And as an international student, I want to make sure that international students and other minority groups get a voice in decisions in the student body as well. So I'm very excited to be senator this year.
Mm-hmm. For me also, I really want to represent the whole student body, especially the international students that sometimes our voices we can be the minority. So represent just all minorities, all groups across campus, and I'm really excited to be part of this.
There were 13 first years who ran, but they couldn't even fill the fourth year chairs. Not enough people even ran, which says something to me about hopefully things are going to change because the younger classes are coming in and are willing to make the change and aren't going to be complicit, at least hopefully, in the coming years.
Trust is beneficial in any situation, right? But at the same time, I think there is something of value when a community really holds you up to their standards, right? Because ultimately we're the ones that are put into service by them. And I think it's great that they're always willing to question, that they're always willing to demand more.
Oftentimes I really don't think students think much about SGA unless they need something.
Mm-hmm.
And getting told no is an easy way to betray trust. And I think that's going to happen this semester. People are going to have to get creative with, we're going to have to get creative with our resources. as student orgs and as SGA members?
I think my main purpose here, at least as far as I'm aware of, and most of my constituents are people who voted for me based on the basis that I would do my best to represent MLCs and their interests. So for me, I think just making sure that even with all the budget cuts, that a lot of the MLCs are able to do the events that they regularly do, which I think is of great benefit to the community as a whole and for those specific identities as well.
As a minority person, queer and disabled, it's important to me that minority voices are heard without expecting them to put in emotional labor and mental labor. Because there's so much pressure put on minority groups to advocate for themselves and put in their own time and energy in order to make sure that their voices are heard. And I have had to be my own advocate for making sure that SGA meetings are accessible to me, which did seem to come as a bit of a surprise to some of the SGA people, that I was trying to advocate for like virtual options for accessing meetings. And we're like, oh yeah, we can think about that going forward. It wasn't like at the top of the priority list because there were no disabled people who were in the planning process. And so unless we advocate for ourselves, our voices aren't heard, which is really unfortunate because then it means that minority groups have to put in the emotional and mental labor in order to get the bare minimum.
So one goal that we have for this year is to not exclude the minority groups, so create events for the whole campus, including everyone, to make a sense of belonging for all students and not excluding any groups.
And I think it's important for domestic students and other minority groups too, and international students all get together, and maybe we can host events to learning more about different cultures and how, even for international students, to learn about life in America, how it was for them as well, and just making campus really inclusive as a whole.
I think sometimes there are, at least from what I've heard, events where members of MLCs aren't able to fully enjoy the events that they personally put effort into actually hosting, because students of outside groups ultimately came en masse, right? And I think that is an example of why there should be a safe space, because I think it's just really terrible if a specific group plans something that celebrates their personal identity and ultimately are unable to enjoy it because, right. I don't think I need to go more in depth into that, but right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand like how it is hard for the school to like say that, like I understand like why they're saying like that we can't exclude people, because like it is part of the Civil Rights Act, and like it is because Grinnell is receiving federal funding that we can't, do things like that. But I do hope that like my fellow Grinnellians like understand and recognize like when an event is not for them, and like understand that maybe that's not the right place for them. So even if like something can't be done like legislatively, I'm hoping that like people at Grinnell like understand like when an event's for them and when it makes sense for them to go and when it makes sense for them to just sit this one out.
And I mean, everybody here has great ideas, and I think a lot of people are trying to bring them into action. And I mean, I definitely see people getting more involved, and it's like every single year there's more activities, and we hear about people going out into town more, and it's really cool.
See, I think something recently that a lot of Grinnellians can attest to is like the recent like flooding of social media posting about like Grinnell's national ranking and all this other stuff. And it's so interesting because it used to so not matter, and it used to be that you were here because you loved the people and you loved the space and you made the space your own. And so it's interesting to see, it's interesting to see more people sit out of Harris's. People not really want to go to Gardner's. They don't want to support student music. They don't, want to make their own music, So it's interesting to see this kind of withdrawal away from the community of Grinnell, and I definitely want to help engender a little bit more community. And I think that for the Senate, while we're still figuring things out, and I think the Senate can do, I think by making clear what the Senate's all about, and I think that by starting to organize and starting to get, SGA kind of rolling, I think that we can start to address those things. And it's a student government ran by students, so